Hello, I am Nate Jennings. I'll be performing an informative entitled What is Speed Cubing for the Republic 2020 tournament. If you are not ready, feel free to hit pause. Otherwise, I will begin 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You've probably heard about the Rubik's Cube and know it as a best-selling toy, an impossible puzzle, or something impressive some of your friends can do. You may even know how to solve one. What you may not know is that there's an entire community of people who solve these as fast as they can. They are called speed cubers, and I, having cubed for 2 years, would like to show you the history, methods, and competitive aspects of speed cubing. Cubing began in 1974 when Erno Rubik invented the first version of the Rubik's Cube, which was then called the Magic Cube. In 1980, it was released worldwide as the Rubik's Cube. It sold very well, and it only took them 2 years before they organized a competition, and at the World Championships, the record was set by Ming Tai at 22.95. However, after this, cubing would kind of shut down, and there wouldn't be any more competitions until 2003, whenever the internet had been starting to revive cubing. Ron Van Brughem created speedsolving.com, the largest speed cubing forum, and other forums popped up on other sites, including one on Yahoo. At the 2003 World Championships, the World Cube Association was formed, and it would overall create good rules that would organize the community. And as well as rules being created, new methods would be developed so people could solve the cube even faster, including 16.53 at the 2003 World Championships, which would drop all the way to 10.48 by the end of 2006. In 2007, the record would be set at 9.86, the first sub-10 in history. Then it would lower down to 9.55 and then drop below 9 for the first time in 2008. However, later that year, Eric Ackerscheich would break the world record by a large amount and would set the world record at 7.08, which would last for 854 days, which would be the longest standing record in cubing history other than the original world record of 22.95. This record would not be broken until in 2010, an Australian speed cuber named Felix Zemdegs decided setting a ton of world records was a pretty good idea. He started off with a 7.03 and 6.77 on the same day. Then in 2011, set the record 4 more times, including 5.66, the first sub-6 solve in history. However, after this, the world record would take 2 years to be broken, which would happen by Mats Falk with a 5.55 in 2013. Then in 2015, the record would be broken again, finally, at 5.25 by Colin Burns. Colin Burns, however, later that year would break his own record with a 5.21. However, that same day, at a different competition, the world record would be set by 5.09 by Keaton Ellis. However, at that same competition, later that day, the record would be set at 4.0 by Lucas Eder, the first sub-5 in history, on one of the greatest days in cubing history. 2016, the record would be set at 4.74 by Mats Falk again, and then later that year, Felix Zemdegs again would break the record at 4.73, pictured here, and he's sitting right next to Mats Falk, which is just one of the best moments in cubing history. The world record in 2017 would be set at 4.69, then be set at 4.59, which Felix would tie that record in 2018. And then he would break the record and set it at 4.22 because Felix likes setting world records. And then the world record will be set in November 2013 at 3.47, which stands to this day by Yu Shengdu. So, with all these impressive times, you may be wondering, how exactly do you solve a Rubik's Cube? Well, there are multiple methods, and most beginners usually start off with some sort of layer-by-layer method, which the first step of a layer-by-layer method is a cross, where you have to have the white solved in a cross, but then you also need to make sure the pieces line up. So the way you would do it in this one, scramble for example, it would look like this. The next step is you solve the corners, which would then result in a solved first layer. So you have this first layer solved like this, and all the colors line up. Then you solve the edges as the next step, which you'd have to take out a corner and then put the edge back in. Then the next step you do is OOO, or orient the last layer, which you do usually using a series of algorithms, something like that. And then the last step is PLO, which you'll usually repeat 1 or 2 algorithms until you solve it. Or sometimes you skip it. The next method I'm going to go over is CFOP, which is the most popular speed cubing method that there is. And the first step to CFOP is cross. It's an acronym actually, for cross, F2L, OO, and PLO. But you do the cross, and then instead of doing just the corners, you do all of F2L in one step by solving pairs. So you solve both of these instead of just solving one at a time. So we continue something like this. And then you solve OOL in one algorithm, or 2 algorithms if you are more of a beginner at the method. And then PLL is solved using one of 21 algorithms. The next method I'm going to go over is RU, which RU is the most unique of all the speed cubing methods. You start out by solving a 1 by 1 by 3 block on one side, and then you do the same thing on the other side. So it looks a lot like F2L, but it's missing these 2 pieces down on the bottom, like that. Then the next part of the solve is to solve the corners. And then, so now all the corners are solved and you only have 6 edges, which are solved in one step. So something like this. And then the last method is the method I use. It's called ZZ. And the first step of ZZ is very similar to CFOP. You solve a cross, but the one thing you do is you orient the edges, which means that you only have to do left face moves, top face moves, and right face moves to solve the rest of the cube. So then you do F2L very similar, but you don't even have to rotate for it, which doing this is a lot slower than doing one move. And then you do OOL and PLL, also very similar to CFOP. However, it's faster since the edges are oriented. So WCA has created awesome competitions where there are awesome world records. But you may be wondering, how exactly do they work? So competition starts off when you register online for the competition beforehand on the WCA website. Then when you get to the competition, you'll be given a card like this one. And what it has on here is it has what heat you will compete in and what heat you will judge in. And when you compete, you'll take your cube, whatever cube you brought with you for said event, you'll bring it to the scrambling station, which in this picture, you would go back behind these boards that are hidden off from the competitors. And then you would go to the competitor area, these chairs that are off to the side of the scrambling area. And after you drop off the cube, your cube will be scrambled and hidden in a cube cover. Your cube cover will be brought to a solving station and you will also go there. At the solving station, the judge will lift off the cube cover and you will have 15 seconds to inspect before you start to solve. And you start to solve by putting both your hands on the timer. And whenever your hands are on there for 1 second, you lift your hands off and the timer starts. You do whatever you need to do to solve the cube. Then you put your hands down to stop the timer. And the judge will record this, and then the cube will go back to the scrambling area, you will go back to the competitor area. And it looks something like this, this is me judging here, and my friend is the one doing the solving. Then there are other events other than 3x3 as well, and these include pyraminx, also known as the triangle cube, the skewb, and some bigger and smaller cubes, like the 2x2, which is the 3x3 but smaller, and the 4x4, which is the 3x3 but bigger. And still, most popular out of all of these is still the 3x3, and it's also the most competitive, with the world record average being held at 5.53 seconds by Felix Index. However, that's the great thing about cubing. With enough practice and work, even when it gets tough, and a little bit of luck, you just might get the world record. Thank you.